Hello, everyone. Welcome to this presentation, second part of this presentation. In the previous part, I explained how this journal Plos One and uh, potential racist team tried to damage my reputation and also how they planted a corrupt editor, and later on they were blaming the review process by that editor or an additional editor. And they, in this particular presentation, I will explain some more points where it's clear that this journal as well as that team, they behaved very differently here. And I really still I want that this message should go to someone where they actually uh, look for evidence, also try to see what's wrong going on with this journal, and why their team is actually targeting people based on some kind of background or nationality background. So that needs to be tested there. So just a recap, in the previous presentation, I showed with evidence how the journal planted a corrupt editor even after sending emails that don't do this one, and still they did that one. How this journal kept changing editors and always after the first revision. So first revision is done by one editor and then they change. And I already provided that evidence, and it was done for my at least three papers, and I never received a response from the editor in chief, who I feel should be responsible for wrongdoing in this journal. And this my paper was edited by two reviewers and two handling editors, one original one, and then later on they changed. And I'm mentioned here, including Ahmed Uludag, who was the original editor and who is still an editor with the journal. But still, they did not really believe on his editing skills, and they sent this paper for re-review by incompetent and non-weed scientist. I already provided that in the previous presentation. Ahmed's edited other papers, they were not retracted. And what does this suggest, and why my paper was retracted? And they are saying that, oh, Ahmed is okay. And so how then this paper was really compromised, because he was the handling editor there. So what does this suggest? That how selectively this Plos One senior editor Maria Zalm targeted me. Is it discrimination or racism, or what is there? And especially when I explained several times, it was not really author's fault. And I give some examples. Discrimination, racism is not new, and especially to me, it is by some specific races. Definitely, it happens. I used to believe that there is no racism in science, but in the last 5 6 years, I have experienced enough. Also, I can say that when I was editor in chief of a journal, and people from Europe also complaining about that one directly or indirectly, and always there is some problem when people from specific backgrounds excels here. Okay, so and another example, when I submitted a paper as the sole author, I don't want to name the paper or author. It was rejected. The same paper was accepted when I had an author from a Western background. So it's really double standard with some people here. Without naming any colleagues, I can say weed scientists who have published together are editing, reviewing each other's papers. Okay, I have examples from Australia and as well as from the US. You can easily see that one, but targets will be authors from specific backgrounds. So this is really common, and I'm not saying that it should not be done. Weed scientists are really very scared. For example, in Australia, I have either published with other weed scientists or working with them, so they can't really you can't really have a weed scientist who has not really published with you. In my case, I have published with more than 400 co-authors. So it's really difficult. So I'm not really complaining about them, but this is double standard when target will be authors from specific backgrounds. And I especially challenge Plos One as well as those so-called these editors to send me published article, any published article for re-review, and I can easily tear apart those papers because all reviewers are different. So don't really give me that excuse there. Now I will come to that point also. And before that, I want to mention here, PLOS One ethical peer review says editors and reviewers need to declare conflict of interest. This is not in author's control if they don't really do. It's clearly mentioned editors are expected to decline invitation to handle submission for which they may have a potential competing interest. If there is one, then at least they should get review from at least one individual. And in this case, there were four, two editors and two reviewers, and I'm really surprised why it was still sent there. This is totally against rules. So what can I do in this case? The journal retracted the paper based on 2 points. They mentioned there data not analyzed correctly, and the conclusion was not supported by the data. It is so surprised that after writing so many papers, more than 400, I didn't know how to analyze data and write a conclusion. Isn't this rubbish? These idiot editors don't really try to understand. They don't really have that background, and they are sending to people who don't really have understanding. I have published similar paper. We are not doing rocket science. It was just simple, efficacy trial paper. I have published similar papers in better journals with a similar methodology, analysis, and conclusion. Okay, and here they are saying that data not analyzed correctly and conclusion was not supported. So therefore, I don't really have much to do. I can't really do much because these are American journals. People are based in the UK or the US, and you can understand people definitely from South Asia or Asian countries. They will understand some of their mentalities. I'm not complaining about all. There are some people sitting in Europe or the US. They have got really that tendency. So I sent the paper to some top weeds experts in their fields, ask their opinion, and see their responses. I will give some examples only. So first of all, this one, USA in the US, Professor Mithila Zugulam, and she is co-editor in chief of Pest Management Science, very high I regarded journal, and she's not only that co-editor, she's professor there in Texas A&M Agri Research and Extension Center. She is also center director. So it's not really that she's just only a weed scientist. And what she mentioned about these two questions, she mentioned that present seems like approach to analyzing the data aligns with established methodology in the field, particularly in using three parameter log logistic for dose response studies, and this has been validated in previous publication. Use of LSD for herbicides. She also said that separate analysis considering the different growth stages, spraying time, and weather conditions. Also, this is she also mentioned that a thoughtful approach was taken by consulting with colleagues and biometricians. This is a prudent step when dealing with complex outdoor experimenting. Also carefully reviewed conclusion, and it aligns well with the data presented in the figures and the clearly outlined future consideration. So I am really surprised how these guys, this editor, they mentioned those 2 points. Second, also from the US, Professor Amit Chhala from Nebraska, University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and he's also not only professor of weed management, also an associate department head there and extension coordinator. And if you see the his response, that's also saying that used log logistic model is common and well established practice in field of weed science, particularly for this one for analyzing data responses studies. And based on this information, it is evident that data analysis was conducted appropriately using established methods in our discipline, especially use of three parameter log logistic curves. We have conducted numerous dose response studies and have published several papers in Weed Science Society of America journals. There's our Weed Science and Weed Technology, utilizing a similar approach. And I think he also mentioned this one reference. Please visit our website. So they have given clearly this one. Second one, I asked, are my conclusion not supported by the data? As a response was, I carefully read the conclusion of the study and it aligns well with the data presented in the figures and future consideration. I'm not sure why this question was raised. See, these editors again need to really think. Then to Iran, I sent to Professor Syed Wahid Islami. And about criteria 3, they mentioned that data analysis was not done correctly. And its response was, your approach to data analysis is sound and aligned with the standard practice in applied weed science research. Use of these models for dose response studies and LSD for analyzing herbicide performance is well established in the field. Uh, Separate analysis you conducted for plants at different growth studies considering varying weather conditions seems entirely justified and reflect a thoughtful approach to handling complex data. Support for conclusion, that next one. After reviewing the conclusion section, he believes that findings are well supported by the data, conclusions are logical and consistent with the results presented. It appears that the concerns raised by the board member may stem from a lack of familiarity with the specific context or standard practice in weed science research. See, this is third one. Fourth, from Sri Lanka, and I'm giving these examples who are really top in their field in their country. So he's a senior professor, not only a professor, senior professor Budi Marambe, and he's not only the professor, he's also the president of the Weed Science Society of Sri Lanka. He's also editor, the journal, also member their National Experts Committee on Climate Change Adaptation, also chairman of the National Invasive Species Specialist Group, and it's a Ministry of Environment. So it clearly mentioned there, I went through the published article and found the statistical analysis conducted is valid and appropriate. Conclusions given is strongly linked to the study results while providing suggestions for future. I find no issue in this one. So this is fourth one, and really, it feels really frustrating when these editors they mention these 2 points, even can't really explain much. Then again, another professor in the U.S., Professor Prashant Jha, but he's also an associate editor of Weed Science as well as Weed Technology. These both are published by Weed Science Society of America. These are top journals in our field, and he actually explained there clearly. It's not really he's a professor here, but also he has led research in this field. So he mentioned that I have 15 years experience as a faculty in weed science discipline in land grant institution in the USA. I believe this journal was accepted for public. This paper was accepted for publication in Plos One, based on the scientific merit of the work in the first place. I also believe that the journal editor's decision to retract this after 1 year of publication needs serious reconsideration. This one is after 2 years. After critically reviewing the article, I found the manuscript used three-parameter log logistic model for dose responses studies to confirm herbicide resistance in weed science in the weed species, a standard method used in all articles published in weed science, weed technology, pest management, weed research. Okay, gave even two more examples and other international journals. All other data analysis met the required standard. I believe he also consulted a statistician in his institution. I found that the conclusion stated in the manuscript are clearly fully relevant and justified based on the scope of the research and data presented. To the best of my knowledge, this accepted and published research article meets the criteria of conducting the research with scientific integrity, encompassing transparency and ethical conduct, and ensuring the reliability of research findings. See, this one really explains all. Then I sent it to Greece. So we already have examples from the US, then Iran, Sri Lanka, then Greece, Professor Nicholas Koros. And I explain these all things. that I fitted this curve, and you need to tell whether analysis was correct or not. And you mentioned that I have published a few papers using three-parameter logistic model under dose response methodology in herbicide resistant research, and I have used a three or four parameter logistic model as in your case. I cannot find anything wrong in your methodology. Along with DOE, LST values are used to evaluate herbicide performance. Analyzing separately data that were collected at different growth stages and under different environment conditions sounds correct. Are my conclusions not supported? I went very carefully through the conclusion section and found not overstating conclusion based on the findings of this research. In general, the methodology and conclusion used in this research is based on appropriate methodology and correct data analysis. See, we have got really several examples. I can get really hundreds of other examples, but don't really think that these editors understand this one, especially when they don't really come from the same field, and when they have something in their mind what they wanted, they have already decided what they want to do. Then another professor, Christos Tamelas from Greece, he also mentioned the data have been analyzed correctly according to standard methods that are fully acceptable in the weed science community. The conclusion section refers to findings that are fully justified by the data. See, what else you need? So I don't really want to go in details further because it's really hard to now convince this journal or their editor. It's mainly for my colleagues and I'm a collaborator. Really, they need to understand that these things happen, and with many other people also. I have heard that people, some of these editors or journals, just to try to improve their reputation, they punish those ones, and even if it is all their fault, they don't really take that in consideration. And I know I have published similar papers using similar approaches, so no doubt in my mind that analysis was done incorrectly. And I will be doing the same similar way in future trials, also future projects also. I can get opinions from more than 100 weed scientists, but that will not punish this editor and journal. To improve their images, journals and editors should not play with researchers' career, and they must be punished by someone. I don't know who will come forward, but yeah, some these agencies, they should really come forward and investigate them and punish this journal as well as these editors. With that one, thank you very much.